At exactly 0517 on a humid morning in the Strait of Hormuz, 23 Iranian speedboats dropped formation and aimed their bows directly at the USS Abraham Lincoln. No radio contact, no identification squawk, just 23 diesel-powered Bog Hammer-type fast attack craft screaming toward a 100,000-ton nuclear-powered aircraft carrier at 60 knots. The crews had trained for this moment. They believed speed and numbers would overwhelm American defenses. They had no idea they were about to receive an education in what happens when cheap boats challenge a carrier strike group equipped with weapon systems worth more than Iran's entire naval budget. The Abraham Lincoln wasn't sailing alone. Two Arleigh Burke-class destroyers bracketed the carrier at 4,000 yards. The USS Thomas Hudner to port, the USS Mason to starboard. Between them, a Cyclone-class patrol boat named Firebolt ran interference at 25 knots. Her crew of 28 spotted the incoming contacts before anyone else. At 18 nautical miles out, those boats looked like fishing vessels on radar. At 12 miles, the pattern became clear. This wasn't commerce. This was a coordinated swarm attack straight out of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard playbook, 0518. The tactical action officer aboard the Lincoln made the call. Launched the helos. Two MH-60R Seahawk helicopters lifted from the flight deck. Twin General Electric turboshaft engines screaming. M240 door guns mounted. A GM-114, Hellfire missiles loaded on external pylons. Their mission was simple. Shadow the swarm. Identify threats. Engage if rules of engagement were met. The pilots climbed to 1,500 feet and turned toward the incoming formation. From altitude, they could see the full picture. 23 boats in a loose V formation. Bow wakes bright white against dark water. Some boats carried visible rocket launchers. Others mounted what looked like heavy machine guns on improvised mounts. Classic asymmetric warfare. Overwhelmed sophisticated defenses with numbers and aggression. 0519. The Iranian boats split into 3 groups. 14 boats maintained course toward the carrier. 6 peeled off toward the Mason. 3 accelerated toward the Thomas Hudner. Speed climbed from 60 to 70 knots. The newer boats were faster than intelligence had predicted. Probably Steregushchiy-class variants. Fiberglass hulls. Twin diesel engines capable of hitting 85 knots in calm seas. Each boat cost maybe $400,000. The carrier they were charging it cost $13 billion. The mathematics favored nobody. The Combat Information Center aboard the Lincoln went from routine to focused in seconds. Petty officers tagged contacts. Officers verified threat vectors. Within 90 seconds, every ship in the strike group knew exactly where those boats were going and when they would enter weapons range. The Iranians were 8 minutes out. To the American crews, that felt like an eternity. Plenty of time to prepare, plenty of time to hope cooler heads would prevail. Let's talk about the Phalanx close-in weapon system, because understanding this machine is essential to understanding what happened next. The Phalanx is a 20mm M61 Vulcan Gatling gun mounted on an autonomous turret. 6 rotating barrels. Block 1B configuration. Fires at 4,500 rounds per minute. That's 75 tungsten penetrator rounds screaming downrange every second. The system has its own search and tracking radar, its own fire control computer, its own decision-making algorithms. When set to autonomous mode, it doesn't wait for human permission. It sees a threat. It calculates firing solution. It opens fire. The engagement sequence takes less than 2 seconds from detection to first round. The effective range is roughly 4,000 yards, but the Phalanx doesn't engage at maximum range. It waits. Tracking, calculating. The closer the target, the tighter the dispersion pattern, the higher the probability of kill. Typical engagement happens around 1,600 yards. That's less than a mile. At that distance, a speedboat traveling at 70 knots covers the gap in roughly 40 seconds. There is no room for hesitation, no time for committee decisions. The computer makes the call. Block 1B added something critical for this exact scenario. A forward-looking infrared sensor. Surface mode capability. The original Phalanx was designed to kill incoming missiles, fast targets at high altitude. The upgrade let it track and engage small boats at wave-top level. Iranian Revolutionary Guard speedboats became legitimate targets. The system nickname is R2D2. There's nothing cute about what it does to fiberglass boats. 0524. The moment arrived. 3 speedboats broke formation and dove toward the Thomas Hudner at full throttle. Bows high, engines roaring, no warning shots fired, no radio transmission, pure aggression. They closed to 3,500 yards. 2,500 yards, 1,500 yards. The rules of engagement were crystal clear. Defensive force authorized when hostile intent is demonstrated. 3 boats charging a destroyer at combat speed with visible weapons mounted constitutes hostile intent. The Hudner's weapons systems officer made the call, phalanx to auto-engage surface threats. The first CIWS mount rotated. Radar locked the lead boat at 1,800 yards. The computer verified threat criteria. Inbound, closing, armed. The barrels began spinning. 75 rounds per second. The lead boat disintegrated. Not sank, disintegrated. 20mm tungsten penetrators don't punch holes in fiberglass. They shred it. The bow exploded first. Engine compartment next. Fuel tanks ignited. What had been a speedboat became a cloud of debris and black smoke in less than 4 seconds. The phalanx fired 137 rounds. Cost per engagement roughly $6,300. The boat it destroyed cost maybe $400,000. But the 3 Iranian sailors aboard were priceless. They jumped clear before the final burst hit, bobbing in the water, stunned, alive. The second boat veered hard left, too late. A Seahawk helicopter had been tracking from altitude. The pilot squeezed the trigger on his M240 door gun, 7.62mm rounds stitched across the water, tracers every 5th round. The gunner walked fire across the boat's stern, engine block punctured, fuel lines severed. The boat lost power and wallowed. Dead in the water, crew scrambling for life vests. The third boat turned to run, 50 knots in the opposite direction. But the Cyclone-class patrol boat Firebolt had closed to 2,200 yards. Her Mk-38 Model 2 Bushmaster chain gun tracked the fleeing target. The fire control system locked, the gunner authorized. The M242 Bushmaster began its work. 200 rounds per minute, 25mm high-explosive rounds, every 4th round a tracer. The first burst fell short. Water geysers 50 yards behind the boat. The gunner corrected. Second burst connected. The speedboat's fiberglass hull couldn't stop military-grade ammunition traveling at 900 meters per second. Rounds punched through the transom, through the engine, through the bow. The boat slowed, stopped, began sinking. Crew abandoned ship within seconds. 3 more Iranians in the water. 3 more lessons learned the hard way. 0526, silence. The engagement lasted 97 seconds from first shot to ceasefire. 3 speedboats disabled, 0 American casualties, 0 American ships damaged. The remaining 20 Iranian boats scattered. Some retreated at maximum speed, others circled at safe distance. Watching, learning, understanding that what looked like an opportunity had been a carefully controlled demonstration of American firepower. The Abraham Lincoln never deviated from course. Not a single degree of heading change. Not a single knot of speed adjustment. $13 billion of American naval power sailing through the Strait of Hormuz as if 23 foreign speedboats buzzing around was barely worth adjusting the coffee rations. But the intelligence haul was staggering. Every radar emission from those boats was captured and cataloged. Every engine signature recorded. Flight patterns analyzed. The newer Steregushchiy-class variants were faster than predicted. Iranian crews showed better training than previous encounters. They split formation intelligently. They used terrain masking behind commercial shipping. They demonstrated tactical competence, all of which American analysts cataloged, filed, and incorporated into future planning. Here's how swarm tactics are supposed to work, and why they failed spectacularly. The theory is simple. Overwhelm sophisticated defense systems with cheap, fast, disposable assets. A destroyer carries maybe 600 missiles, thousands of rounds of ammunition, but those magazines aren't infinite. Send enough boats and eventually the math favors the swarm. Some boats get through, some boats reach launch range for anti-ship missiles or torpedoes. Some boats ram the target. It's naval warfare distilled to its crudest mathematics. Quantity versus quality. The problem is execution. Swarm tactics work when the defender can't track all threats simultaneously, when sensors get overwhelmed, when human operators freeze under pressure. But modern American naval sensor networks don't get overwhelmed. The SPY-1D radar aboard the Mason tracked all 23 boats continuously. The Phalanx CIWS engaged the closest threats autonomously. The Seahawks provided aerial coverage and precision fire. The Cyclone-class patrol boat intercepted runners. It was layered defense executed perfectly. Every threat vector covered, every gap filled. Iran has been refining swarm tactics since the tanker war in the 1980s. They've invested in faster boats, better weapons, improved training. But the fundamental problem remains unsolved. Speed and numbers only matter if you can close the distance without getting destroyed. And American defensive systems keep getting better at preventing exactly that. The cost analysis writes itself. Iran deployed 23 boats. Each boat burned roughly 200 gallons of diesel for the 2-hour mission. Fuel cost alone roughly $9,000. Add crew wages, maintenance, operational overhead. Call it $50,000 for the entire operation. 3 boats destroyed represent maybe $1.2 million in actual hardware losses. Add the intelligence value of exposing tactical doctrine, the propaganda loss of 3 disabled boats, the embarrassment of retreating after engaging. Total Iranian cost approaches $5 million when all factors are included. The United States expended 137 phalanx rounds at roughly $46 each, $6,300. Maybe 225mm Bushmaster rounds at roughly $50 each, $10,000. Helicopter fuel and 7.62mm ammunition, another $3,000. Total American expenditure, roughly $20,000 in consumables. The weapon systems themselves aren't consumable. They return to base ready for the next engagement. But the real cost isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in deterrence degraded. Every failed swarm attack teaches potential adversaries that confronting American carrier groups with speedboats is expensive theater. Every disabled boat broadcasts a simple message. We see you coming. We track you continuously. We'll give you one chance to turn around. After that, the math changes permanently. The 3 Iranian crews fished from the water were handed over to Iranian Coast Guard vessels within 4 hours. Professional courtesy, international maritime law. They returned home with stories their commanders probably didn't want circulated. Stories about weapon systems that engaged before human operators could blink. About tungsten rounds that turned boats into confetti. About helicopters that track from angles impossible to defend against. Word of mouth spreads faster than propaganda in closed militaries. Those stories matter. 0543. The Abraham Lincoln Strike Group continued south through the Strait of Hormuz. Training exercises resumed that afternoon. Crews served dinner at normal hours. The incident was logged, reported, analyzed. Business as usual for a carrier group that handles more complexity before breakfast than most navies manage in a month. Within 72 hours, Iranian state media released carefully edited footage showing brave Iranian Revolutionary Guard sailors confronting the American fleet. Propaganda for domestic consumption. The navigation logs told a different story. The carrier had sailed a perfectly straight line throughout the entire encounter. Treating 3 aggressive speedboat runs with the same concern most people reserve for aggressive seagulls at a beach picnic. This is modern deterrence in action. Not explosions, not body counts. Just a 97-second demonstration that challenging a carrier strike group with aging speedboats is like challenging a grandmaster in chess while announcing your moves 3 turns in advance. The board belongs to whoever controls the information, and the information belonged entirely to America. The Strait of Hormuz remained open that morning. No international crisis ignited. No diplomatic incidents requiring explanation. Just 20 speedboats sailing home with empty threats and full debriefs. While the most powerful warship group ever assembled continued south without breaking stride. Some lessons are taught with overwhelming force. This one was taught with overwhelming precision. And for Iran's Revolutionary Guard Command, that quiet efficiency probably stung worse than any missile barrage ever could. They came looking for a confrontation. They got a shooting gallery. If you found this breakdown valuable, subscribe and share. Your support helps bring more untold stories of modern military operations to light.